Welcome to the Beyond Barriers podcast. If you're an ambitious woman who wants to advance in leadership, then this podcast is for you. This podcast is co-hosted by Nikki Barua, digital innovator, serial entrepreneur, author, and speaker, and Monica Marquez, senior corporate leader, ex-Googler, and diversity expert. From inspiring stories to cutting-edge strategies, you'll learn how to develop the skill set, mindset, and tool set to get future-ready fast and accelerate your success. Hi, I'm Monica, and welcome to today's session. Today, I wanted to talk about the importance of investing in yourself. Now, I've had lots of conversations with individuals, and I was reading an interesting article that investing in yourself in various different ways in terms of becoming a lifelong learner is now one of the most critical things that you can do in this current age of uncertainty. And the reason I wanted to talk about it is because I know that I would say a decade ago, I personally know that I wasn't investing in myself the way that I needed to. One, for success and to be an agile, individual in terms of being able to pivot and change when things were needed, but also just not investing in myself, even financially, in terms of making sure that I was continuously learning. And the reason I bring this up is because I've had lots of conversations with individuals where they struggle to really invest in themselves, especially women. And I find it very interesting and started reading lots of different articles, but I found a really interesting article from the Harvard Business Review where they did recent research 2 years ago, really trying to understand how much people are investing in learning. And this was not gender specific at all, but the scary statistic was that very few organizations were finding that their learning and development portals were being utilized by employees. And they did quite a few surveys with individuals and found that individuals spent only 5 minutes in formal learning on a daily basis. They spend most of their time, doing emails on things that sometimes aren't even related to their job, or spending time in meetings and all kinds of things. And they were doing very little to actually learn about something specific about their industry or new skills or any of those types of things. And I find it interesting because other research shows that 80% of CEOs post-pandemic are saying that, given the disruptive change, AI, technology, the way that everything is changing, that still 80% of CEOs believe that upskilling employees is the number one priority. So now becoming a lifelong learner, becoming an agile learner is extremely imperative in that you are constantly making sure that you are ahead of the curve. And so I started thinking about, okay, if you have to invest time, money, or energy, you need to invest it in yourself. And for women, and most of the women that I've coached or worked with or mentored or even sponsored or even personally have always struggled with investing in myself, always finding different reasons why I shouldn't be investing in myself, especially when it came to real dollars. Now, don't get me wrong, doing the YouTube videos or buying the books and reading books about certain things, yeah, I always did that. But when it came to thinking about formal education or, going, even after getting my master's, never really thought about paying for additional courses or workshops or any of those things. And even if I did, I wasn't willing to invest the time because I always felt like I should be doing something, at work, or I just didn't have the time to do it. So I really had to focus and really start thinking about how am I going to allocate the time or allocate the budget. And so I started reading lots of different researches and even asking women is like, why don't you want to invest in yourself? And sometimes there's guilt in terms of, well, I have lots of other priorities. I should be investing my time or even my money in something else other than myself. Or there was, well, I need to maybe ask my spouse or get permission from somebody else or get validation from somebody else that I should be spending this money. Or even sometimes really thinking about, maybe right now is not the right time because I have too many things on my plate, be it work or it's just busy season and things like that. And I started actually poking holes in some of those answers and saying, well, it's never going to be the right time. It's never going to be the right time because we are all very busy, ambitious, busy individuals. And you'll always find an excuse if you're always saying it's not the right time. But now that we've realized that, in this age of just constant change and disruption, and even the research that shows that your skill set has a life expectancy of 18 months, that's scary if you want to stay ahead and make sure that you are accelerating in your career and leveling up in your career. And so those are some of the things that I started thinking about of like, well, how can you remedy that? And I did have some, friends and others, and even myself, where I would think, oh, I should be investing my money somewhere else, and realizing that actually you or investing money in yourself is the best return on investment because you have more control over that. And you can turn what you're learning and the skill sets, what you're learning, and really, put it towards accelerating in your career and finding ways to make that pay off for itself, be it, better, better aligning your skill sets or competencies to the next promotion, or just making sure that you are excelling in your job so that the next, evaluation or the next performance review is, above average, et cetera, and things like that. So one of the things I started doing was actually budgeting, setting, when I came up with my spending plan, or I like to call them spending plans and not budgets. But when I was thinking about my spending plan, spending on clothing, spending on entertainment, those types of things, I started putting in a budget for education and learning. So then that way it wasn't one of those things where it was an afterthought where I might see a workshop or even, a coach or a program or something that I wanted to take, whether it was a certification or something. I knew that I had a predisposed budget set aside for that. And if it was within that budget, then I wouldn't think it twice. I would just sign up for it. And so I would say that if you are in a relationship or you are on a budget or with somebody that you want to say, hey, listen, I think that we need to set, learning budgets for each other so that we can continue learning, then you don't have to stop and ask for permission every time you know that you've set aside, and you've allocated, monies for doing that. And so investing in yourself doesn't always have to be money too. It's time. How much are you going to dedicate to yourself in order to actually study and learn? Those are some of the things that you have to think about as well. And to think that most of the people around you are only spending 5 minutes formally, learning or doing daily. If you could spend an hour a day just reading something regarding your industry or a new skill set or something you want to master, identifying a strength that maybe you're good at something, but you want to be great at something. If you spent just an hour a day, you would be light years ahead of individuals who are only spending 5 minutes, if you think about it. So those are the things that I really think are going to be really pivotal for someone who wants to accelerate their success in this day and age. And for women, I think we have to start asking ourselves some of those questions of, what is the real reason of your fear of investing in yourself? And sometimes it might be, am I going to get a return on that investment? Well, here's the thing. You control that. So you reap what you sow. So if you're going to put, skin in the game and pay for some sort of program or coaching or, course or something that you're taking, then you have to then dedicate that time and get the most out of it, for your money, because it will pay off. I can tell you right now that, me making the taking the huge risk of leaving my corporate job and becoming an entrepreneur actually accelerated my need to actually invest in my education, because I didn't know what I didn't know becoming a business owner and an entrepreneur. And I can tell you right now that I probably spent more on myself from an educational perspective in the last year and a half, 2 years that I stepped out of corporate than I did my entire corporate career. But what I can tell you is that I have grown leaps and bounds. I mean, I can't even quantify it. And I started thinking to myself, had I actually invested in myself a decade ago, 2 decades ago, the way that I'm investing in myself now, no telling, where I could be. The sky would have been the limit. And so I really am telling you from a personal perspective that investing in yourself, even if it's just buying books or just carving out the time, because time is money, right? So carving out the time to actually learn is really going to make a huge difference, and it's going to pay for itself in dividends. And so really starting to invest in yourself in that way, because learning has to become part of your everyday kind of life, or it has to become a daily habit in order for you to get ahead, especially if you have big, ambitious dreams to be a leader. And if you think about it, leaders and some of the best leaders, when you start studying their success habits, you will see that they are constantly learning. I mean, when I go back and I think of names like Bill Gates used to read something, like a book a week, because he was constantly wanting to learn. And it may not be on a, particular subject or industry, but it was just something where he had this hunger for learning. You hear about all of these other individuals that, are constantly studying every day. I mean, even, presidents dedicate an hour a day to read. I remember reading an article how Obama had always carved out an hour a day to read something, whether it was topical or just reading a book or something, so that they could stay ahead and stay nimble and stay agile. And so really thinking about what are ways that, you can commit to invest in yourself. And that's time, that's energy, whether I'm just going to dedicate time to be healthier, wellness, take a break or something along those lines. But investing in yourself, not just in dollars and cents, but with time and energy, is actually going to pay off for you in dividends.
What if you could pinpoint the invisible ceilings limiting your success? Imagine having clarity on your strengths and barriers so you can take action and gain unstoppable momentum to advance as a future-ready leader. Well, that's exactly what the Beyond Barriers quiz will help you discover. You'll get your personalized score based on the 25 essential elements proven to accelerate success in the digital age, so you can understand what's holding you back and where to focus your efforts. The Beyond Barriers quiz is completely free and takes just a few minutes. Go to iambeyondbarriers.com/quiz and take the quiz today.
I wanted to talk about it because it was something top of mind. I read a couple of articles and then had some interesting conversations with, a group of women that I'm working with, and was really surprised on, everybody being very honest and vulnerable that they don't spend time learning and they don't invest in themselves the way that they should. And some of the key things that I found was, one, they, felt like, okay, well, I need to consult with my spouse or need to really think about it myself, mull over it, should I invest this money? But the crazy thing is we don't think twice about, sometimes going and just splurging and spending on an expensive dinner or drinks or clothing or whatever it may be, where that could have been, money that you could have invested in yourself. So I think if you just start thinking proactively and saying, I'm going to set aside a budget, whether it's a monthly budget, an annual budget, or whatever it may be, that will probably be the best investment that you will ever make, because you could make that, you're going to have a higher return on that investment than putting it in a savings account or putting it somewhere else. And believe me, I've learned that firsthand, in that, just investing on learning from others, learning from, taking the time to do it. So that is the one thing I wanted to share with everyone and get you thinking outside of the box. And I would love for you all to reach out or even share in the comments of like, what are you going to commit? Are you going to commit to an hour a week? Baby steps. Maybe you start off like if everybody's spending 5 minutes learning, maybe you could say, I'm going to spend 20 minutes learning. And know that you are going to be, exponentially, ahead of individuals, the average person around who isn't really spending a lot of time learning. And I think you'll start seeing that pay off in dividends. And for, my fellow women out there of thinking about, ways to invest and not feeling that guilt that you should be investing either your time or giving that time to somebody else or something else, is that no, we should do what they tell us every time you jump on a plane and they say, put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it on somebody else. You have to fuel yourself and feed yourself first. And learning in this day and age is a superpower. And really being able to grow and learn and put yourself in uncomfortable situations. And, and that might be taking on something that, taking on a subject, a topic, a competency, a skill set that you need in order to level up. And you won't know until you try it, right? So as my mom used to always tell us, don't knock it before you try it. So you may as well try something that is working for others and who we are seeing who are successful, right? So study people who are successful. Those successful people are constantly learning and investing in themselves. And so maybe take a chance on yourself and invest in yourself. And I think you will be really happy with the returns. So that's it for this episode. I just really wanted to plant that seed in everybody in that lifelong learning is here to stay. In this disruptive age where, artificial intelligence, machine learning, technology is constantly changing, and in some cases maybe taking over some of the things in your job, then you need to make sure that you are staying ahead of that curve and you are going to be ready to adapt and pivot at any point in time. And sometimes that's just knowing how to learn and studying and flexing that muscle and being ahead of the curve because you've already been investing in yourself and learning. So that's all I have to say about that. But just know that I encourage you and I challenge you to carve out time to learn, carve out some budget and invest in yourself and learn. And I guarantee you won't regret it. So thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you next week. And I will see you then. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Beyond Barriers podcast. There are thousands of podcasts out there, and we are so grateful that you've chosen to listen to ours. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a rating and tell a friend about it. And subscribe to get new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Visit IamBeyondBarriers.com, where you'll find show notes, links, and the best way to connect with our guests. See you next episode.